Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to my Valiant Dawn complete set review. This is the second episode of 6, and we are covering Rage. Now, the quality of this is a little lower than when Dominion because I had the image files, whereas this time I'm using an image compilation that I've sort of just cut up and put into separate ones that were, I think, taken just from Boltor's spoiler video, since he's the one that got the aspect to spoil. By all means, go check him out. I will link his channel in the description, so go over and show your support, since this was, in fact, his aspect to spoil. But anyway, first things first, Battle-Scarred Elder. Battle-Scarred Elder is a 3 mana, 2 rage, and 1 generic uncommon. It is a 4/4 with 2 speed, and when it enters the field, you draw a card if it has the most attack among creatures you control. A tie does not count. He has to be the biggest. No orc has ever died of old age. Now, I actually talked up to Boltor, and it's like, the reason he wanted rage was because of the flavor texts. Yeah, that's fair. Rage has some of the funniest flavor text of pretty much any aspect. Didn't read all of the ones in Dominion, but yeah, the Rage ones are funny. There's some funny flavor. Now, he's an Orc Warrior, so that doesn't really come up at all. So what do I think of this guy? Well, he is competing exactly with Phoenix. So where does he fit? Now, he is better than Phoenix in two situations. Against Dominion, because he has 4 HP and he's hard to deal with, and he doesn't get homed and you lose. And against, or not against, with basic Zash decks. Or even with advanced Zash decks, he's not too bad. Like, I have kind of written him off beforehand, as like, oh, he's a worse Phoenix, but maybe not. It is a very awkward mana cost, though, if you're not playing Burning Rage, so he's probably a Burning Rage card. And you might not be playing Phoenix. I mean, currently Phoenix is not that popular because of all the bounce and all the helms. And the helms are going to get more common. So maybe you actually do want to play Battle-Scarred Elder. Although he is competing with some of the other cards that Rage are getting as well. And he has a very awkward mana cost. But he cycles. That's actually quite critical. He does cycle. And being a 4/4, it's not the largest creature anymore. 4/4 would be like top of the chain. It's like top. You get 4/4, Thunderstorm Titan stats, massive creature. Not anymore. Not anymore. But he is quite good, and I think he'll probably see a decent amount of play. I think the reason he'll see a decent amount of play is probably because of Helm being prevalent. So Phoenix gets kind of destroyed by that. So anyway, decent card. Also good in Trials. He's an uncommon. On to Blood Frenzy. 2 mana, 1 rage, common spell. Non-instant. Blood Frenzy deals 1 damage to any number of creatures you control. The enemy hero distributes that much damage among creatures he or she controls. This is awful. Now, the reason this is awful is you can only deal 1 damage to each of your creatures, so you can't just say, have the Orc in play, and then put 3 damage on him, and then just fireball your opponent's board. That'd be crazy. You could do so much damage from like 2 or 3 creatures. So it's just, you can choose where to Whirlwind. But then your opponent gets to pick where he puts the damage. So you can put 2 on an Iena, and then like 1 on an Elf Warrior. And just keep the rest of his stuff alive. And you already have Fire Blast. I really don't like the distribute cards so far, because your opponent gets control of the outcome, and they just aren't good. The only one that's been good that we've seen so far has been Aryl Barrage, but that's because it fits in a very, very nice part of the curve, and you can split the rows, meaning it's easier to get a good outcome, whereas with this you need to work too hard for it. Cannonade. Cannonade is a 3 mana, 1 rage, 1 generic uncommon, so a bit like Fire Blast. Put a target emblem. Yes, target emblems are tribal now. Yeah, get your elf trackers. But yeah, put a target emblem on an enemy creature. The enemy hero distributes 4 damage among creatures he or she controls. Shock each creature with a target emblem damage this way. It's weird to have shock in Rage, but I don't know. It's basically, Aryl Barrage has this effect pretty much. You don't get a target emblem, but you can't split rows and it costs more, and it's in an aspect with Fire Blast. I mean, come on. I mean, Burning Rage, it's like, I mean, we still don't know if they're changing Burning Rage, but it is kind of feeling it's like we don't want to change Burning Rage, so we're just not going to make any good Rage spells. We've seen 2 and they've been pretty bad. And then we also saw Lightning Bolt, which isn't good either. Like, I think it's pretty bad as well, and I think it's getting worse with the rest of the set coming out. So it seems like all the rage spells, at least the ones we've seen so far, are just terrible. So that's the fix to Burning Rage right there. But yeah, Cannonade I don't think is very good. In Trials, sure it's AoE. Even then it can be a bit too situational. Oh, here's a name. Okay. There's going to be someone in the comments telling me off of this, I can guarantee it. Aryl? Aryl Warborn. 4 mana, 2 rage levels, legendary epic, 5/5 with 2 speed, orc warrior, unstoppable, damaged creatures you control get +1 attack, very interesting. And if you have 4 levels, 2 of which are rage, so dragon requirement, and 3 mana activation to deal 1 damage to all creatures. This guy's good. This guy is very good, actually. He's very, very good. So this is what the orc from earlier is competing with that I've forgotten the name of. Let's go back and find that. Battle-Scarred Elder. They have basically the same on-curve cost. Battle-Scarred Elder lets you do 3-level curves early, but you maybe don't want to do that in most games. And Warborn, 5/5 unstoppable. Rage creatures do not have those kinds of stats. That is huge. That is a very, very large creature. And with Burning Rage, you can get this guy out a turn early. That is powerful. That is a very, very powerful creature. Now, what about his other 2 abilities? Because 5/5 Unstoppable, that's a massive creature. His other 2. So, his, like, Enrage thing, damaged creatures get +1 attack, that doesn't come up much. The only thing it comes up with is self-damage Whirlwind type effect, which he enables. Now, what I like this guy with is the fact that you can use him with Advanced Zash if you don't use Flame Serpent, because Flame Serpent's a bit smorky. So you can use Advanced Zash, use this guy as a beater, a reliable beater. Instead, he does damage in sets of 5, which is actually quite important, because it means him, Dragonfire, does sets of 5 and then 10, and then you can do multiples of 5 for lethal. His secondary ability, the first time you use it, you'll probably have like 6 mana because you'll have gone 5 mana for the hero power and then like maybe 4 mana for a dragon or something, but you've got like probably 6 mana lying around when you're using this ability. So you can whirlwind the board twice and attack for 6, which is quite a lot. He also just is very hard to block if he has that, because if you attack with an unstoppable creature and they have to throw like 5 creatures in front of it, or okay, not 5, say 3 creatures in front of it, they put like 6 health in front of it and you whirlwind, and then you deal an extra damage, and they lost 3 HP worth of blocking, so you just dealt 4 extra damage. So instead of them taking none and killing your Warborn and trading, well, you may have just stopped the trade, and in this case, you would have, what, effectively got through 3 damage instead of -1, so... Yeah, I think Warborn is very, very good, and he'll see quite a lot of play. He's also ridiculous in Trials, but... well, yeah, he's epic. It's kind of expected. A lot of the cards that just break the game in Trials turn out to be epics, because yeah, he's also very epic feeling. He has a very unique type of effects there. Kind of reminds me of Thionor. Fire God Temple. This is the level. Please play level 1 creature shrine for Rage. All of the aspects got one. Rune of Fire, 1 rage, 1 generic, 2 mana, 1 cooldown. Next time you play a level 1 creature this turn, choose one. Put a target emblem on an enemy creature or deal 2 damage to a creature with a target emblem. This just is bad. This is pretty bad in my opinion. The target emblem stuff is not very good. None of it's really pushed. None of it is really pushed. It all seems kind of weak. And you need to spend 4 mana to deal 2 damage. Really? Like, Fireball deals 3 damage for 3 mana, and you got Alter at the same mana cost. But you need a level 1 creature as well. Yeah, this is bad. I'm not a fan of this kind of stuff. You need 2 levels, so it's like... best case, they already have a target emblem, and you play like a goblin with it, and you deal 2 damage for 3 mana. It's... even with the 1 turn cooldown, you're just going to run out of level 1 creatures. I really don't like this thing. Flame Rune Warrior. 3 mana, 1 rage, common, 3/2 with 2 speed, dwarf warrior. When Flame Rune Warrior enters the field, put a target emblem on another creature. Here's another target card. At the start of your turn, Flame Rune Warrior deals 1 damage to each creature with a target emblem. This is also bad. So, seems to be a trend of these target cards. The problem is, unless you're using the target emblem immediately, that second effect will never happen, because if they have a creature that you want to target down, like you want to get the effect on, it has to be on the back row for that even to be feasible. The fact that it's start of turn as well means you can't just use it as like a whirlwind effect. So yeah, and 3-2 is bad stats. 3-2 2-speed is awful stats for a 3-drop. It's terrible. Like Gibber and Ronnie is a 4-2 effectively over 2 bodies. Elite Vanguard is 3-3. Felix is 3-3. Like it's a bad stat total. It is definitely a very, very bad stat total. Dies to Fumes, which is really awkward for a 3-mana card. So yeah, I don't like this guy either. Had a couple pretty bad rage cards in a row, but there have been some good ones so far. Speaking of good rage cards, Forced Labor. 3 mana, 1 rage, 1 generic, uncommon, action, spells, and non-instant. Summon 3 Tortured Orcs onto the field. Now, this is another example of flavor text that's really good from Gibbo. Why would you ever work if you're not forced to? I love the flavor text on rage cards. They really are good. Gibber and Ronnie's quotes especially are very good. But anyway, so what are the Tortured Orcs? These are the Tortured Orcs. They are 2/3s with 2 speed and slave, and as long as Tortured Orc is damaged, it is no longer a slave. Now, I just misread that. The first time I was like, oh, it loses slave. But no, it has to be damaged to attack in the first place or block. So, what do I think of Tortured Orc and Forced Labor? So, Forced Labor is 3 mana. You put 6/9 worth of stats into play, which is a lot, but they're all slaves, which means you need 3 creatures to actually do anything with it. I'm not sure about this, because, okay, Tortured Orc, let's just get this out of the way. Cloning Vat can make Tortured Orcs. So, if you want your 2/3s, you can make your 2/3s. The question is Forced Labor feasible because you need to be able to attack with everything? At worst, there is a Rage Dominion slave deck. Because you can go, think about it, instead of playing the Dominion openings, what you can do is you can play the Rage openings, and then you've got Forced Labor, you've got the Champion of the Revolt, you've got Minotaur. That's a powerful aggro curve if it finishes with a 5/5 on turn 4. That is a powerful aggro curve. So you can definitely get that to work. If both of your turn 4 plays are 3 Tortured Orcs when you've got a bunch of Champions or the Revolt in your deck, or a Minotaur, that's a powerful aggro deck. So maybe that's actually worth running. Will it just fit into Rage? No, I think it's a bit difficult to get that many creatures in play to attack with Tortured Orcs. Maybe you can just swarm the board. Maybe. It's the kind of thing where, like, I'll just test it. I will test it, because I want to see if it works. But it's a bit hard to get them to attack. Although you can... I'm trying to think how you could do this. Is there any way of just killing your own things? Again, with Dominion, you could sack one of them with Stronghold Metropolis. So... it just works really well with Dominion Rage. So maybe that's a deck now. But we'll have to see. Yeah, it is a very, very interesting interesting card, Forced Labor. The Tortured Orc itself may actually just see play on its own. A 2-drop can't attack if it's the only creature you have. That is fine. You always have 2 creatures in play. And 2/3, 2 speed, that's a lot of stats for a 2-drop. So I think Tortured Orc will actually see more play than Forced Labor. Kind of like Silverfang and Thionor. But I think they both have a place. Tortured Orc is a common as well, which helps out Rage in Trials, which is always appreciated. Goblin Arcanist, how it work. It's a giant mace. What's the flavor tag? Goblins can wield weapons twice their own weight. Goddamn rage cards. Anyway, 2 mana, 1 rage, common, 3/2 with 2 speed. Whenever Goblin Arcanist engages in combat, so that it doesn't even have to attack anything, it just enters the combat phase. Distribute 2 damage among other creatures you control until end of combat. Or at end of combat, not until end of combat. Now, the at end of combat thing, that could come up. It means that you could still attack with your goblins. It's also other creatures, so if it's the only thing in play, it doesn't have a drawback at all. Also, I like the flavor on this. The mace is so massive, he hits his allies if he's with any friends. That's kind of funny. Now, where do I like this guy? Well, he is a 3/2. So now you've got the Tortured Orc, and then the Goblin Arcanist, which both have 5 stat total. They both have drawbacks, effectively, but you've got a lot more HP on the board now, which means Arcanist is not going to be killing your own stuff as much. Now, Distribute means you can actually choose where it goes, so you can go, for instance, you can go Lizard, Arcanist, and then there's a couple higher HP 3-drops in Rage now, but you could just go turn 1 Arcanist, turn 2 Tortured Orc, and attack for 3, put the 2 damage on the Orc, and yeah, you don't lose anything there, because the creatures heal end of turn. Keep in mind the Orc needs to be damaged to lose Slave, like, at all. It gains it back at end of turn, which is a good thing, because otherwise I think it would be way too strong. Yeah, I did misread that card the first time, but yeah, I think it'll be way too strong. But Arcanist, I think, is a very, very good 2-drop, and I think they're trying to build 2 different types of Rage, the massively swarmy Rage, and the individual power creature plays Rage, which plays probably a bit more like Corruption aggro, which is interesting, and it probably has a bit more play to it. Ogre Captive, speaking of large creatures, 2 mana, 1 Rage, 1 generic, rare, that artwork, 4/4, 2 speed, slave. Ogre Captive counts as 2 slave creatures, interesting. As long as Ogre Captive is damaged, it is unstoppable, which also means that you need to put damage on it manually, because if you look at Arcanist wording, it puts the damage on at end of combat, which means that you can't just use it to trigger Ogre Captive halfway through combat, so it's a bit awkward. Now, that flavor text, by the way, Gibbo and Ronnie's best friend. Yep, that artwork is a giant ogre with Gibbo and Ronnie on its back. I really like this guy. I think this guy is very, very strong, and he's part of that maybe the sort of Dominion Rage aggro deck, where you can start Rage. You've got 8 Rage 1-drops, and then you've got Arcanist at 2, and maybe Fireworker or Tortured Orc, or probably Tortured Orc, and you can maybe play the Slave Gladiator as well. That might be too much Slave. But anyway, then you got Ogre Captive at 3, and then at 4 you can play the you can either play the Riot leader of the Riot, get a Minotaur and attack with everything, and then if they deal with they deal with some of the stuff on your board, because they'll have to, then you can start playing stuff like Minotaur, or just keep playing more guys, and if they deal with the Captive, you play Minotaur. Like, you've got really big stat creatures. This also works really, really well with Arcanist, because it just absorbs damage. Like, if you go Lizard, Arcanist, Captive, then you can effectively attack for 2 on turn 2, and then for 5 on turn 3, and the Captive will just absorb the Arcanist attack. So, yeah, he's also pretty bad on defense, I think. Like, you do need 2 other creatures in play to block with him, which is kind of a big deal. He does have quite a large drawback. I'm not going to say, like, he is just straight good. He does work very well with Gibber and Ronnie, though. Obviously. Hence the flavor text. He's quite good with Advanced Zash as well. I'm not going to say he's just straight good, because I think that drawback is quite extensive. Like, having to have 2 other creatures in play is big. Like, we talked about that with Forced Labor, where having 3 slaves at once is sketchy. So, we'll have to see how good he is. But you never know. I think he does look quite good, and we'll have to see whether or not the drawback does come up a lot more. Raki Berserker. Here's an example of a higher HP 3-drop for your Arcanist deck. 3 mana, 1 Rage, common, 2/3, 1 speed. Strange. Swift. When Raki Berserker is dealt damage, put a Might Emblem on it if it doesn't have a Might Emblem. And it gets +1 speed when you have a Might Emblem on it. This is interesting. Now, what I do like in this, by the way, is it gives the Kayanu Rage deck an extra set of swift attackers for Kayanu. They were using the Goblin Firebrand and then Gibber and Ronnie combo, but now you've got Raki Berserker as well, which does that job, so you don't have to play Sharpshooter anymore, which is always a bit awkward. So you get your Might Emblem, it becomes a 3/4 immediately. With Swift, with 2 speed, which is very, very good. So, probably worth trying in that deck. Outside of that, though, competing with Gibbo, if Arcanist did damage immediately, it could probably be good, because it'd be a 3/4. The problem is it can't really attack anything. So it's a very, very smorky card. Is the Smork worth it? Probably not. I think it is competing with some very good 3-drops. I'll definitely test it because it might play better than it looks, but it is definitely competing with some hefty power at the 3-drop slot now. Especially after this expansion, there's even more. So it's not just Gibber and Ronnie, there's some other options as well. It's not just the Gibber and Ronnie. The Apocalypse, that card name. The Apocalypse is a 3-mana, 2 rage, 2 generic epic. It's a spell, so it's like the Grand Reunion cycle they seem to be adding to every aspect, which is interesting. They're sort of filling out their epic cycles a bit more. At the start of your turn, gain +1 energy. I'm guessing it starts with 0 because it's a bit of a misprint. It probably starts with 0. At the start of each hero's turn, that hero distributes X damage among creatures he or she controls, where X is twice Apocalypse's energy. Apocalypse deals all unassigned damage to that hero. Now, this is a very strange card. So it does 0 damage to them, then it does 2 to you, 4 to them, and then 6 to you, 6... No. 2 to you, 2 to them, 4 to you, 4 to them. Yeah, so it damages you first. Now, we have seen some ways of using this, but I've got a feeling there'll be less creatures in play. By that point, you can assign a bunch to yourself if you don't have the ability to assign it to your board. Your opponent does get everything to heal first, so that could be tedious. Now, the thing I'd maybe like this in is with Thaumic, Thaumic Laboratory. Had a mind blank there. But yeah, Thaumic Laboratory, you can make it have 2 energy immediately, and it just 4s them, and then 4s you, and then 6s them, so that's 10 damage. If you can give this energy to start, it's good, because it hits them first. If you can't, it's not good. I mean, it would deal, if you put 2 energy on it, it would deal 4 to them, 6 to you, actually, and then 6 to them. So that's 10 damage straight up, which could just ruin a control deck. The problem is that, like we saw with Dominion, the life gain is insane now in Dominion control decks, at least. And you can just use that as a combo piece. So the life gain is quite large. So what do I think of it? Well, I think it might see some play, but Red Dragon sort of fits this point anyway. It does give you an ability to damage your own creatures, which could be big, but it's tricky. I'll put it that way. It is tricky to assess. I think it's bad, and the reason I think it's bad is because it damages you first, which means if you're against anything that's faster than a control deck, it probably just helps them maybe beat you, even though you manage to get to the point when you can play the Apocalypse. So, yeah, we'll have to see. But I think outside of energy manipulation, I don't really see this. It's also very expensive. Ah, yes. Totem of Orc. Okay, Totem of Rogue. Roganoch. I hate this name. I hate this card. I think it's the worst card in the set, in my opinion. But anyway, 2 mana, 1 rage, 1 generic, legendary, rare. It's a totem. Whenever an allied shaman enters the field, you may pay 1 energy, of which it has 2. And you can transform it into a 3/3 1-speed creature until end of turn. At the end of your turn, if it has no energy, destroy it. This is the worst card in the set, in my opinion. It's definitely down there. It's definitely down. It's bottom 5 for sure. I think it may actually be the worst. It is terrible. It's not like... It's not Vegetation Blockade bad. I think it's Wasp Swarm. Maybe a bit above Wasp Swarm. It's a bad card. The reason it's a bad card is 1-speed creatures don't have much to say in terms of board control. Doing incremental damage is not very helpful when you're dealing massive burst with Offering Yard Priests. And you could be playing Totem of Legends in this place instead. And it's legendary. And it only has 2 energy. And it doesn't impact the board really. And you could have just set up better stuff. And it's bad. It just is bad. If you're playing only Rage with those totems, then you probably need some extra totems. Maybe 2. I don't even like the idea of playing 2 of these at all. I just don't like it. I think it serves almost no purpose. I have gone over this before in the secret cards, but I didn't think it was good at all. And by the fact no one's playing Shaman still, yeah, it doesn't seem very good. Black Market. Here's an interesting one. 4 mana, 1 rage, 1 generic, rare, instant. Reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. The enemy hero puts cards not named Black Market from them with a combined mana cost of 4 or more into your hand. Put the rest into your graveyard. Now, this basically lets your opponent choose from the top 5 2 cards to give you, in most cases. Because that's what you'll need to go above 4, or 1 card. That's why they can't choose Black Market, because you could actually just play Black Market and then they give you another one. So that'd be awkward. But unless you have a very, very low curve, you're not getting anything substantial out of this. It being instant is kind of helpful, but I don't know. Burning Rage is also still a thing, and that draws you massive amounts of cards. So I don't think this is good at all. 4 mana is a lot, and it gives your opponent control. It gives your opponent control of the outcome, and those cards just don't work. It also means you can't play it with Burning Rage either at all, because it will draw a card and then you just show your opponent the cards and like, here's 3 shrines and 4 costs, because they can give you more than 4 if they want to. So they can just give you everything, and then you're gonna kill yourself. So yeah, I don't think this is good. It's cool, but I don't think it's good. Nice artwork though. Car the Deadly Aflame. We got another dragon. 3 mana, 1 rage, legendary rare, 2/3 with 3 speed, dragon human. Heroes dealt damage by Car can't gain life as long as you control Car. That's actually quite powerful. And if you have 3 levels and 3 mana, you can give Car +2/+1, becomes flying, and loses his power. So he becomes a dragon, basically. He actually has different artwork as well. He becomes a dragon. Now, this is one of the Dragonborn lore characters who are like the leaders of Rage. So yeah, he actually can become a dragon. Now, how good is this guy? So he is a 2/3 with 3 speed at 3 mana in Rage. That's a big deal. Like we saw that the elf that I keep forgetting the name of, Silverborn, something like that. But anyway, the 2/3, the most forgettable elf in existence. The 2/3 that had 2 speed and got buffed to 3, and it was just a vanilla 2/3, and actually became a good card. Not as good as it first seemed, but it became actually playable. Now, this guy is that card, but in Rage they don't really get high speed, and they don't get higher HP numbers, although apparently now they do. But it also helps with the control decks, because you can make this into a 4/4 flying that beats control decks, and it doesn't die to advanced Zash, which is a big deal, because you got your early game that's now good in the late game. And control decks have to kill this thing immediately, because otherwise if it hits them, well, they can't gain any life. Which is a problem. And a 4/4 with 3 speed is not easy to handle, and he is only a 3-drop, so I think he's good. Will he see a lot of play? Maybe. The reason he might not is simply because of the competition. As we've seen, Rage has been given some pretty good early game, which means that, well, Car is going to have to be quite good to actually see some play. Although you could play him in a bit more of the mid-rangey Rage deck now, since you've got the 5/5 Orc, and you got maybe the 4/4 for the card draw, maybe not, and Phoenix might fall down out of favor a bit, not because of Phoenix getting weaker, but because of Helm. I think Helm is going to be everywhere, so I think Phoenix is definitely going to probably bite the bullet for a little bit at least. So anyway, this is the last of the Rage cards. Gruul's the Infiltrator. 1 mana, 1 rage, legendary, rare, 1/1 with 3 speed. When Gruul's enters the field, put a target emblem on an enemy creature. When Gruul's deals damage to a hero, choose 1. Gruul's deals 3 damage to an enemy creature with a target emblem, or exchange control of Gruul's and an enemy creature with a target emblem. And then they get Gruul's, and then they attack you, and switch again, and again, and again, and again. Anyway, this guy is hilarious. I do really like him. I don't think he's very good, but I do really like him. Now, he's not an aggressive 1-drop, don't panic. Yeah, he's not an aggressive 1-drop. Only dealing 1 damage. We've seen this with base 1 recruit. That's a low amount of damage. So only dealing 1 damage versus 2 is pretty big. Now, does he work in some sort of archetype? Well, he's basically the guy that pushes target. The problem is he has to hit them. And the only time I can think of how this is going to work is with basic Never, but then you already have Elf Tracker there, and that isn't played. And you might as well, at that point, just Fireball whatever you're using this on. You still keep the 1/1, but I don't really think this guy's very good. I don't think he's fantastic in Trials either. He might not be that bad there, but he's just a bit awkward. He also is a little bit more of a later game 1-drop, so he should be very easy to deal with. Straight up. He's not a goblin, so you can't give him Swift. He's a bit awkward. Very, very cool design. A lot of play in a 1-drop, but I think he's been balanced correctly is what I'm trying to say. He's interesting, but I don't think he's very good. And I think that can be said for pretty much every target card I've seen in this entire set review. Let's actually have a look at the target cards. So we had Cannonade, which I didn't think was very good. That had target. We had the Temple. That's a lot of work. I guess you can put 2 target emblems, and I think that's all the target stuff, right? Yeah, it is. Also, he can only deal damage to target stuff if he hits them directly, which is a bit difficult. And he doesn't deal it to all target emblems. He just deals it to one, so it's probably not worth it. Yeah, I'm not sold on Gruul's. He's supposed to be a little bit more of a slow type of control-y rage 1-drop, but I don't think he actually functions as one. He also just straight up loses to a lot of local stuff. The only time I see this guy being good is actually if you're going second against other 1-drops. You can play Gruul's and then target their 1-drop and attack them, and then you kill their 1-drop and you got a 1/1. But the 1/1 isn't that spectacular. It doesn't really trade with anything, so it'll probably just die for free later on as well. And if you're going first, he's pointless. And he dies to every removal in the game. And if they have like Steelhost Spearman or Relic Guard, he's never doing anything ever. So, yeah. And 3 damage doesn't kill anything large, so he's not even like a later game card. I'm trying, but yeah, I think he's too gimmicky to get to work. I think that's what I'm going to say about Gruul's. So, what do I think is the cut above the rest out of all of the Rage cards? So, the stuff I like is, I think Battle-Scarred Elder will probably see some play, but how much play he sees depends on a couple things. Depends on how prevalent Burning Rage is, because that's where you get your card draw. It also depends on how Aryl plays out. Because Aryl is like your go-to beater now in Rage, so I think he'll be the bar when it comes to like the turn 5 play, and he's also easier to play. At least in mono red, so he's actually easier to play, and I think he'll just beat out the Battle-Scarred Elder, quite frankly. Also, you can't really play him in a lot of 2-color decks, because like I mentioned, there might be a Dominion Rage aggressive deck with like the Slave theme, but Battle-Scarred Elder won't be the largest creature in play, because they'll have the 4/4 Orc Captive, and then the Minotaur, so he might not even be the biggest creature, and then he doesn't actually draw. He's okay against nature, but they may not even have to bounce him. So yeah, I think Aryl is really good. I think that Battle-Scarred Elder is reasonable, but probably will just not quite make the cut. Besides that, I think Forced Labor is interesting for a sort of Dominion Rage slave deck. I think Tortured Orc will just see play on its own, probably, because you usually have 2 creatures in play. And if you're not playing the super smorky, ironically, deck, then you're not going to be playing Firebrand Goblin synergies, so maybe Tortured Orc will just, like in the Dragon Slammer decks, the ones that are not very aggressive, they play 4 dragons or 3 dragons at the top of the curve, Burning Rage, now you got Tortured Orc, it's a bigger stat line in the early game, and plays defense very, very well if you have multiple creatures. So he might help going second, actually, in the Rage Mirror, so that should be nice. But yeah, Tortured Orc I think we'll see playing that kind of deck, so will Arcanist. I think we're going to see 2 different types of Rage decks, and depending on the metagame, one will be better than the other. We kind of already have this already, where like you've got the super smorky decks with Flame Serpent and Massive Assault and things like that. Not just the weird ones that like, not the crazy Rage decks, but just some of them play Burning Rage as well. But the point is, you play Flame Serpent and Massive Assault, and you go face, 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 face. Then there's the other ones, which the advanced Zash builds and some Burk that play more control-y and then have like Red Dragon as the win condition. So I think that Tortured Orc and Arcanist and Probably not Ogre Captive, that's a bit slow. But maybe Berserker, Car, that kind of stuff might actually just replace a lot of the cards in the slower deck, because you want some higher HP numbers to stabilize the early game a little bit more, since they'll be more useful late game, especially the Arcanist. That's a big upgrade there, and Arcanist, if you can play him and not get punished massively for it, then he's super good, because dealing 3 damage per swing is huge. So I think that the Dragon Slammer type deck's got a lot of good stuff. Now, the Smorky decks, not as much. There's Racky Berserker, maybe. There's Ogre Captive, maybe. But I think he's going to be more of a very specific thing with Leader of the Revolt. He might fit in the crazy Goblin deck. Yeah, he might. He might give them a bit of extra punch with a significant drawback in the Goblin deck. We'll have to see. But I think moving forward, the bigger Rage decks are going to be more important, like the big Rage. So you have your Dragons, your Aryl, because now you've got a point in curve where you can play your big guys, because you're not playing Flame Serpents. Now you've got Aryl, your massive dude. And I think those decks are going to be quite prevalent, because you've got a lot of very high quality creatures in that big Rage style. So yeah, I do like Rage. I think a lot of the designs are very strange. I think my pick for the best Rage card, Arcanist is good, but I don't think I want to pick that. I think it's probably going to be Aryl. Yeah, I think, or Aryl. I think I'm going to go with Aryl. Yeah. For the best Rage card. I could be wrong, but I think I'm going to go with him just because he's a big, solid beater that Rage don't really normally have. So I think I'm going to go with him for the best Rage card. So anyway, I did really like the Rage cards. So that's about it for my Valiant Dawn expansion Rage segment. The next one will be Corruption. Now, Corruption was done by Fuzz, as Rage was spoiled by Boltor. So again, please go check him out. I will put a link to that in the description. I'm also doing a podcast tomorrow with Boltor, Fuzz, and Peacekeeper for the release. I'll probably do a stream with some pack openings as well. I don't think I'll upload it to YouTube. If you guys want to see a pack opening video, tell me. But I won't upload it unless people actually want to see it, because I think it's a bit, not trashy, but it's way too easy content to make, and it's like I'm not really putting any effort into it. I'm just opening packs. So if you guys want to see a video on it, then I'll just upload the stream segment. But as is now, I don't think I'll make a video for pack openings. But yeah, by all means, go check out Boltor. And next, we've got Fuzz's Aspect Corruption. So anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, put it in the comment section below. Or if you want to ask me any questions about the cards I looked over today. If you want to support the channel directly, there is a link to my Patreon in the description, along with a 75,000 gold code for new players that also gives you the Disquisitive Spirit Card Back. But as for now, it's been Jotto, signing off.